I never imagined the quiet evening breeze outside my house would be the last peaceful moment before my entire world shattered. One minute, my 10-year-old son, Jacob, was playing on the porch with his toy drone, and the next he was gone, snatched into a black SUV that disappeared before I could even scream his name. My heart nearly stopped when my phone buzzed minutes later, displaying a blocked number. A cold, shaking voice hissed, $1 million. Midnight. No police or your son disappears forever. But what HOA Karen didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that I wasn't just some suburban dad she could bully. I wasn't just another helpless parent she could intimidate for money. I was a former FBI agent trained for situations exactly like this. And tonight, I was going to bring my son home, no matter what it cost. And Karen had no idea who she just messed with. Before this nightmare began, my life looked like any ordinary American family's: quiet mornings, school runs, weekend barbecues, and evenings spent helping my son with his science projects. Jacob wasn't just my child. He was my entire heartbeat, the only part of this world that kept me grounded after I left the FBI. I walked away from that life years ago, deadlines, danger, sleepless nights, because I promised my late wife I'd give Jacob a peaceful childhood. I thought I had buried that chapter forever. But fate and Karen had other plans. That woman had been a problem in our neighborhood from day one: petty complaints, constant threats, and a sick hunger for control. But I never imagined she would cross the line into pure evil. Before we begin this story, I want to know something from you watching right now. Which city are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. I love seeing how far our community reaches. And hey, before we dive deeper into this emotional roller coaster, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because stories like this, they're not just stories. They're real warnings, real lessons, and real shocks you won't see coming. Now let's begin. The moment I realized Jacob was missing, the world around me blurred. My legs stiffened, my heart pounded, and every instinct I had buried for years roared back to life. I knew this wasn't a random kidnapping. This was deliberate, targeted, and calculated. And when I received that chilling ransom call, something inside me snapped. Karen thought she was in control. She thought she could treat my son as a bargaining chip. She thought I would break. But she had no idea she had awakened the very monster I spent years trying to put asleep. Now the real story begins. The moment I realized Jacob wasn't on the porch, a cold, electric panic shot through my spine. His drone was still buzzing weakly on the ground, its propellers whirring in circles like a lost heartbeat. That sight alone told me something was terribly wrong. Jacob never left his drone unattended. I yelled his name once, twice, louder each time, my voice cracking as it bounced off the quiet suburban houses. Nothing, not even an echo. Every second stretched into something sharp and suffocating. I felt the old instincts I'd buried clawing their way back to the surface. My breathing slowed, my eyes scanned the surroundings, and my mind began reconstructing possibilities the way it used to in the bureau. That's when I saw them. Faint tire marks curving away from the curb, fresh enough that dust still floated in the air. And then a small, crumpled piece of paper caught under the tire mark. I snatched it up with shaking fingers. It was a parking violation notice from our HOA, signed by the one woman who had made my life miserable since the day I moved here, Karen. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I sprinted back inside, grabbed my phone, and hit the security feed. One camera on the neighbor's fence caught the corner of the street. I rewound until I saw it, Jacob sitting on the porch, humming softly, drone in hand, then a black SUV slowing down. Not stopping, slowing. The passenger door opened, a figure in sunglasses and a cap stepped out, grabbed my son with a speed and aggression that made my blood boil, and dragged him into the vehicle. The SUV sped off before Jacob even had the chance to scream. I paused the footage, zoomed in, enhanced. There, just a sliver of her face behind the tinted window, the coarse blonde hair, the oversized sunglasses, the ridiculous fluorescent lipstick, and that smug, familiar grin. Karen. My fist slammed against the table, so hard the monitor shook. My son. She touched my son. The phone rang at that exact moment, the timing so perfect it felt staged. Unknown caller. I answered with a coldness I didn't know I still possessed. A distorted female voice whispered, $1 million. Midnight. No police. Instructions will follow. She hung up before I could speak. The house suddenly felt smaller, darker, like oxygen was being pulled from the walls. I could feel the old version of myself, the agent I buried, reawakening. Not by choice, but by necessity. I grabbed my old duffel bag from the closet. I didn't open it. I knew exactly what was inside. Tools from a life I swore I'd left behind. Tools I hoped I'd never need again. Yet tonight, every one of them would be used. As I zipped it open, the memories came rushing back. Surveillance missions in freezing deserts, covert operations in cramped apartments, hostage rescues in foreign cities. All those skills, now they had a new purpose. As I moved through the house, gathering what I needed, something unexpected happened. My phone dinged again. This time it wasn't her. It was a neighbor, Mrs. Ramirez, sending me a message. I saw Karen earlier arguing with someone near the community storage units. She looked angry. Something fell off. The storage units. The perfect place for someone like Karen, isolated, partially hidden, and technically under HOA control. My pulse quickened. She wasn't just kidnapping my son for money, she had planned this, calculated it, and she clearly thought she had every advantage. But she forgot one thing. She wasn't dealing with some frightened father who would blindly follow instructions. She was dealing with an ex-FBI agent who had taken down criminals sharper, faster, and far more dangerous than her. I stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air. The streetlights flickered the way they always did, but tonight, everything felt different. The neighborhood felt like a battlefield I once knew. I walked toward the community units, each step steady, quiet, controlled. I wasn't panicking anymore. I was hunting. As I crossed the road, I noticed something strange. The gate to the storage area wasn't fully closed. It was cracked open just an inch. A signal. Or a mistake. Karen wasn't smart enough for signals, so that meant it was a mistake. And mistakes were gold to someone like me. I slid through the narrow opening. The entire row of units sat silent and dim, with only one light flickering at the far end. Unit 12B. A soft humming noise came from inside, electrical. Maybe a generator. Maybe something worse. I reached the door, placed my ear against the steel, and listened. At first, nothing. Then movement. A small whimper. My heart clenched. It was Jacob. He was inside. For a moment, emotion almost overpowered me. Almost. I forced myself back into focus. I checked the lock. Cheap. Basic. Karen grade. I could break it in 3 seconds, but breaking it meant noise, and noise meant danger. So, instead, I slipped a thin metal pick from my pocket and worked silently. Click. The lock surrendered. I opened the door slowly, inch by inch, letting the darkness swallow me. And there he was, Jacob, tied to a chair, duct tape on his wrists, eyes red from crying but still brave, still strong. He looked up, saw me, and the relief in his expression almost brought me to my knees. But then something behind him flickered. A small red light. A sensor. A camera. And even worse, attached to it was a tiny explosive trigger. Karen wasn't just kidnapping my son. She had rigged the unit with a bomb. And if I made the wrong move, I would lose him forever. The real nightmare was only beginning. The moment I saw that blinking red light, every breath in my chest turned to ice. Jacob's tear-filled eyes looked up at me, silently pleading for help, but I couldn't rush forward. I couldn't even step fully into the room. One wrong vibration, one wrong shadow crossing that sensor, and the trigger would activate. Whoever helped Karen set this up, because she sure as hell wasn't smart enough to wire explosives, knew exactly what they were doing. I raised a finger to my lips, signaling Jacob not to move, not even an inch. His little shoulders trembled, but he nodded, trusting me the way only a child could trust a parent. I scanned the device from a distance, tiny, crude, but effective, pressure-sensitive, motion-triggered, likely a low-yield blast designed to cause maximum injury in a small enclosed space. Someone wanted leverage, not destruction. Someone wanted to hurt, not kill. That someone had Karen's fingerprints all over it. I slowly backed out of the unit, closing the door just enough to hide the flicker of the sensor. Outside, the air hit my lungs like fire. I needed tools, real tools, tools that weren't in my duffel, tools I never thought I'd need again. My mind raced through options. Breaking the sensor? Too risky. Cutting wires blind? Suicide. Calling the police or bomb squad. Karen had eyes everywhere, cameras, nosy neighbors, HOA spies who worshipped her every rule. And if she got even a hint that I broke her, no police condition, she'd trigger the device remotely. No, the only chance was speed and precision. I ran home, grabbed my old field kit, the one with microcutters, thermal mirrors, and an ancient but reliable frequency scanner, and sprinted back to the storage units. Every second Jacob was alone in that room felt like a knife twisting deeper into me. When I reached the unit again, I crouched beside the door and powered the scanner. The screen lit up. A faint signal pulsed at a steady rhythm. That meant the device was transmitting to a receiver, likely in Karen's possession, meaning she was monitoring the bomb and probably watching to see if I tried to disable it. My jaw tightened. I positioned the thermal mirror under the door, angling it upward to view the device without entering. The image was grainy but clear enough. Whoever assembled the bomb made a mistake. 2 wires overlapped in a way they shouldn't have. If I cut the red lead before the yellow loop connected, I could freeze the trigger long enough to move Jacob out. But I had one shot, one chance, one wrong move, and Jacob would never take another breath. I slid my hand inside the gap beneath the door, holding the microcutters by their very edge, my fingers barely reaching. My arm burned as I strained for the right angle. Sweat dripped down my forehead like rain. I counted silently. 3, 2, 1, clip. Silence. The red light blinked, then went dark. My breath whooshed out of me, so fast I nearly collapsed. I shoved the door open and rushed inside, scooping Jacob into my arms. He sobbed into my shoulder, trembling uncontrollably. "Dad, I knew you'd come. I knew." Those words nearly shattered me. I tore the tape from his wrists and lifted him tightly against my chest. "You're safe now, buddy. I've got you." But the nightmare wasn't over. As I carried him outside, a blinding beam of headlights suddenly pinned us. A car screeched to a stop, neighbors spilling out, shouting, panicked. Someone had called 911, and within minutes, flashing red and blue lights washed over us. Paramedics ran forward, inspecting Jacob while I stayed beside him, refusing to step away even for a second. Their questions felt endless. Was he conscious? Had he been harmed? Did he have trouble breathing? But I barely heard them. I kept watching the shadows, expecting Karen to appear like a vulture circling the scene. Then I saw her, or rather, she made sure everyone saw her. She marched out from behind the paramedic van, her hair wild, her arms flailing dramatically as she shook her head and yelled, "Oh my God, this man is unstable. He attacked the storage units. I think he's hiding something. Someone call the HOA board immediately." She was performing, acting panicked, playing the concerned citizen card, and the neighbors, those who feared her more than reason, actually stepped back for me. Karen even pushed her way forward, placing a hand on Jacob's shoulder like she had permission to touch him. "Sweetie, are you okay? Did your dad do this?" Jacob flinched away from her, so hard he nearly fell off the stretcher. "Don't touch him," I growled, stepping between them, my voice shaking with contained rage. Karen recoiled, clutching her pearls like some melodramatic villain from a cheap soap opera. "Officer, you saw that. He's dangerous. He threatened me." One police officer stepped between us, hand hovering near his holster. "Sir, please stay back. We need to investigate what happened before anyone leaves." I stared at him coldly. My son was kidnapped, tied up. A bomb was placed in that unit. You're telling me I need to stay back while she pretends to be the victim? He hesitated, looked at Karen, looked back at me. The paramedics loaded Jacob into the ambulance, telling me he needed immediate evaluation at the hospital. I climbed in beside him, refusing to let anyone separate us. As the doors closed, I locked eyes with Karen through the small rear window. Her smile, small, crooked, victorious, made my blood boil. She wasn't scared. She wasn't worried. She wasn't even pretending anymore. She was confident. Confident because she believed the story she fed the HOA, the neighbors, and now the police would protect her. Confident because she thought she controlled the narrative. Confident because she thought I had no evidence. She had no idea what I had in my pocket. My thumb brushed over it. The tiny USB drive holding the security footage, the bomb's signal frequency log, and a damning clip of her face in the SUV window. She had no idea her lies were about to collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. And when they fell, I was going to be the one standing over the wreckage, with proof, with witnesses, and with vengeance. The ambulance sped toward the hospital, but I wasn't thinking about medical reports or police statements. I was thinking about the next step, the dangerous step, the step that would finally expose Karen for everything she was. I wasn't done. Not even close. The hunt was only beginning. The hospital lights were harsh, cold, and too bright for a night already drowning in fear. Jacob lay on the examination bed, clutching my hand like it was the last safe thing left in his world. Doctors moved around him, checking vitals, shining lights into his eyes, asking questions he was too shaken to answer. But all I could think about was Karen. Her smug smile in the ambulance window haunted me like a ghost I couldn't kill. Once the doctors confirmed Jacob had no physical injuries besides bruising and dehydration, they moved him to a room for psychological observation. I stayed beside him, brushing his hair back gently, promising him I wasn't going anywhere. But inside me, something feral thrashed beneath my ribs. Fury. Cold, calculating fury. I had fought criminals, traffickers, sociopaths, but Karen was in her own category, unstable, obsessed with control, and now emboldened by her lies. I stepped out into the hallway to breathe for a moment, but the second I did, 3 voices erupted at once. Mrs. Ramirez, Old Man Fletcher, and Sarah, the single mother who lived 2 houses down. They had rushed to the hospital after hearing the police scanner chatter. "We're so sorry," Mrs. Ramirez said, gripping my arm tightly. "We didn't know she'd go this far. We didn't know she was capable of. She's always been like this." Fletcher interrupted. "Always threatening, always spying, always accusing people of breaking rules that don't even exist." Sarah nodded, eyes blazing with anger. "She gave me a violation notice last month because my daughter's bike looked too colorful for the neighborhood aesthetic. I knew she was crazy, but kidnapping a child? That's evil." The 3 of them talked over each other, voices rising with frustration and guilt, each confessing small signs they had ignored. Karen screaming at kids, threatening homeowners, monitoring security cameras that weren't hers, even stalking people late at night when she thought nobody noticed. They all seemed desperate to unburden themselves, to make up for their silence now that the truth had exploded into the open. But their guilt wasn't my goal, information was. And tonight, information was currency. "Tell me everything," I said, my voice low but firm. "Every detail, every strange thing Karen has done in the past month." Their expressions sharpened. They understood, and they began talking. Mrs. Ramirez was first. She explained how she saw Karen meeting with a shady man near the HOA office, a man she didn't recognize, someone who didn't belong in the neighborhood. He carried a black duffel bag, just like the one used in the kidnapping footage. Fletcher chimed in next, saying he saw Karen arguing with someone behind the community pool shed late at night. He overheard words like money, timing, and "don't screw this up." He assumed it was another HOA dispute. Sarah added something that made my heart pound. Karen had been taking pictures of Jacob for weeks. At the bus stop, at the park, even through the slats of our backyard fence. She had pretended it was about safety violations, but now it was clear she had been planning this. Stalking, observing, preparing. Every piece of evidence they shared formed a puzzle I could finally see taking shape, but the picture wasn't complete. Not yet. I needed the whole truth, not just fragments. Why didn't anyone say something earlier? I asked quietly. Sarah's eyes dropped. Because we were scared. Fletcher nodded. Karen controls the entire HOA board. Anyone who speaks against her gets fined, harassed, or bullied out of a neighborhood. Mrs. Ramirez exhaled shakily. She ruined a family last year, claimed they violated trash rules. They moved out within 2 months. My jaw tightened. This wasn't just an HOA tyrant with a big mouth. This was a woman who thrived on power, fear, and humiliation. And now she had escalated from petty intimidation to kidnapping. Before I could ask more, the hospital room door slid open and a nurse leaned out. "Sir, your son is asking for you." My chest softened. I stepped back inside. Jacob sat upright now, pale but calmer. "Dad," he whispered, "she wasn't alone." My lungs froze mid-breath. "What do you mean, buddy?" He swallowed hard. Karen had a man with her. He wasn't from the neighborhood. He told her. He told her to stick to the plan, and she told him she deserves the money more than he does. My fists clenched. Did you see his face? No, but his voice was deep, and he walked with a limp. That detail hit me like lightning. A limp. A deep voice. I knew someone like that. Someone I'd put away years ago. Someone who swore revenge. Could Karen have aligned herself with a criminal I once helped capture? Or was this just a coincidence that looked too perfect? Before I could spiral deeper into analysis, the hospital hallway erupted. Voices, footsteps, yelling. I rushed outside and saw a crowd forming near the reception area. Neighbors, dozens of them. Some angry, some confused, some scared. And in the center, like she owned the world, stood Karen. Her hair perfectly fixed, her face painted in fake concern, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man is dangerous," she shrieked, pointing toward the hallway where I stood. "He staged the kidnapping to frame me. He has violent military training. He saved his son's life," someone shouted back. "You were seen near the storage units." "You're lying again, Karen. We don't believe you anymore." The crowd fractured, half supporting her, half turning against her. The tension sparked like flint striking steel. Karen's eyes found me across the room. Cold, pale, furious. She stepped forward, shouting even louder. "You're a psychopath. You're manipulating everyone. You're trying to destroy me because I enforce rules you don't like." Her lies spilled effortlessly, practiced like lines she rehearsed in the mirror. But the community wasn't bending this time. Not after what happened to Jacob. Not after the bomb. Not after the truth started leaking through the cracks of her perfectly polished lies. A man from the back raised his phone. "I have footage of you following Jacob last week." Another woman yelled, "I saw you arguing with that strange man near the HOA office." Someone else added, "We're done being scared of you, Karen." Her confident mask shattered in real time. Her eyes widened. Her mouth twitched. Her hands trembled. For the first time since this nightmare began, Karen looked afraid, and that fear told me one thing. The truth was catching up to her. Fast. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "It's over, Karen." She swallowed hard. No, it's not." She backed away, clutching her purse like it was life itself. "You have no idea what you've started." And just like that, she turned and bolted out of the hospital doors, running, panicking. A guilty person always runs, and I was done being on defense. It was time to go after her. The hunt for Karen had officially begun. The moment Karen fled out of the hospital's sliding doors, everything inside me clicked back into the FBI rhythm I thought I'd buried forever. Her fear, her trembling voice, the way she clutched her purse, none of it matched the arrogant tyrant who ran the HOA like her personal kingdom. That meant only one thing. The investigation had finally caught up to her lies, and she knew the walls were closing in. But here's the thing about people like Karen, they don't break cleanly. They shatter violently, and the more cornered they feel, the more unpredictable and dangerous they become. I stepped into the cold night air, the hospital doors sliding shut behind me. A pair of officers stood near their cruiser, talking quietly. When they saw me approaching, their posture stiffened. Officer Daniels, mid-40s, straight posture, rigid jaw, moved forward. "Sir, we're handling this. Please stay inside." I stared at him, unblinking. She just kidnapped my son, rigged a bomb, lied to half the neighborhood, and now she's sprinting into the dark. You really think I'm staying inside? Daniels shifted uncomfortably. "We don't have enough evidence yet to." I cut him off. "I do." I pulled the USB drive from my pocket, the one I kept hidden since the moment everything began. Security footage, bomb signal logs, time-stamped recordings, witness statements, and footage of her SUV. His eyes widened. The younger officer, Patel, looked between us, clearly unsure who to follow. After a tense pause, Daniels exhaled sharply. "All right, let's talk inside." That was the first sign the investigation was finally turning. Inside the hospital conference room, the officers plugged in the USB, and the moment Karen's face flashed on screen, leering behind the tinted SUV window, her silhouette unmistakable, the entire room shifted. The air grew heavier. Patel swore under his breath. Daniels rubbed his forehead. This changes everything." "No," I corrected quietly. "This reveals everything." They analyzed the footage frame by frame. Jacob being snatched, the SUV speeding away, Karen's grin, the bomb's signal pattern. Every detail stacked up, like damning bricks tightening around her. Daniels radioed dispatch. "Be advised, suspect Karen Milton is to be detained immediately. Possible accomplices, potential flight risk." Hearing those words should have given me relief, but instead they made me uneasy. Karen wouldn't go quietly. She had backup. A man with a limp. A man with a deep voice. A man who was smarter and more dangerous than she ever would be. And if Karen realized the evidence was out, she wouldn't run alone. She'd run to him. But who was he? I dug through my memory, flipping through years of cases. Drug traffickers, fraud masterminds, domestic abusers, extortionists. But the limp, the voice, then it hit me. A cold, jagged name from my past. Leon Mercer, an ex-con who once masterminded a kidnapping ring in Nevada. A man I helped capture. A man who swore revenge so vividly the courtroom fell silent. And he had a limp, the result of the chase that ended with him in cuffs. He'd been released 6 months ago. My stomach nodded. If Leon Mercer was involved, then this wasn't just some HOA gone wild disaster. This was a calculated setup. Karen wasn't the mastermind. She was a pawn, an egotistical, loud, gullible pawn, but a pawn nonetheless. Mercer needed someone local, someone who knew the neighborhood, someone unstable, someone easy to manipulate. Karen fit the role perfectly. As the officers continued reviewing evidence, I stepped out into the hallway, mind spinning. If Mercer helped plan the kidnapping, then he wasn't done. Kidnappers don't leave empty-handed. He'd need leverage, money, threats, hostages. And Karen, panicked, sloppy Karen, would lead us straight to him. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My pulse spiked. I answered. A familiar, deep voice slid into my ear like poison. "Agent," he growled. "Miss me?" "Mercer. Alive. Active. Watching." My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles whitened. "Where is she? Where are you?" A slow laugh echoed. "Karen messed up. She got scared. You were supposed to fold, but instead you came running like the hero you always think you are." I forced my voice calm. "Let Jacob go. It's over." Another laugh, louder this time. "Over? No. No. This is just the beginning." Karen was supposed to follow instructions. She was supposed to keep the kid quiet, but she panicked. He exhaled sharply, like he was pacing. I never wanted to involve the HOA freak, but she practically begged to be useful. And now she's ruined everything. My jaw locked. Where is she? Silence. Then, if you want her, if you want justice, come find us. The line went dead. I stormed back into the conference room. Traced the call. Daniels was already on it. Pinging location, got something. A map pin dropped on the screen. The abandoned quarry 5 miles outside town. Of course. Open space. No cameras. No bystanders. The perfect place for a confrontation. Daniels looked at me sternly. You're not going alone. I stared back. Try stopping me. You're a civilian now. Not tonight. Something in my face must have convinced him, because he didn't argue further. Instead, he grabbed his gear. Fine, but you follow our lead. We headed out. Police cruisers rolled out behind us, sirens off, lights dark. A silent convoy cutting through the empty streets. As we neared the quarry, the night grew eerily still. Not a single animal sound, not even wind. We stepped out, flashlights slicing through the darkness. And then footprints. 2 sets. One heavy, dragging slightly the limp. One frantic, Karen. The trail led to a rundown shack perched on the edge of the quarry pit. My heartbeat thundered. Daniels raised his hand, signaling silence. The team spread out. I moved forward, closer, closer. Then a scream tore through the night. Karen's scream. Hi, Sharp, terrified. Stop. Please, don't. A gunshot exploded, echoing across the quarry. The officers froze. I didn't. I sprinted toward the shack, kicking the door open, and the scene inside froze me in place. Karen was on the floor, hands tied, mascara streaked down her face, sobbing uncontrollably. And standing over her, gun in hand, was Leon Mercer, smiling. Welcome back, Agent, he said. Been waiting for you. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Karen wasn't the final villain. She was the bait, and Mercer had set a trap for me. The moment Leon Mercer turned toward me with that twisted smile, the entire world seemed to tilt. The shack smelled like damp wood, gasoline, and fear. Karen's fear, sharp enough to choke on. She lay on the floor, wrists bound, makeup ruined, hair sticking to her sweaty forehead as she gasped for breath. She wasn't the arrogant tyrant anymore. She wasn't the HOA queen standing over everyone. She was just a terrified woman who finally realized she had crawled into the jaws of a monster. Mercer held his gun loosely at his side, but his stance was steady, too steady for a man who had supposedly lost control of his life. His limp wasn't slowing him down tonight. He looked healthier than he had during his trial. More focused, more dangerous. You look surprised, he said, tilting his head. I told you I'd come back for you. I meant it. My fists clenched. You used a child to bait me? Mercer laughed, a cold, scraping sound that made every instinct in me flare. A child is leverage. You're the real target. Karen was just the clown who helped me get close. Karen whimpered at that, scooting back until her shoulders hit the wall. You said nobody would get hurt. Mercer glared sharply over his shoulder. You were supposed to follow instructions. But you got greedy. You got loud. You ruined the plan. His voice dropped to a venomous growl. And now you're useless. Karen cried harder, shaking her head violently. Please, please don't kill me. Shut up. The command cracked through the shack like thunder. My blood surged with adrenaline, my FBI instincts fighting to take control. The officers were somewhere outside, but we were too deep in the quarry pit for their voices to reach us. I needed to stall. Assess. Find an opening. Let her go, Mercer, I said calmly. Your beef is with me. He smiled again, this time broader. Oh, I plan to, but not yet. She's still entertainment. The gun lifted, slowly, toward Karen's head. She screamed, curling into herself as if trying to vanish. And, for a split second, I almost stepped forward. Almost, until the floor beneath Mercer's boot made a sound I recognized instantly, the hollow echo of a hidden compartment. My eyes flicked down. A latch, barely visible, covered in dust. A trapdoor. And my heart dropped into my stomach. This wasn't a random shack. This wasn't a last-minute hideout. This was deliberate, planned, prepared. You're looking at it, Mercer said, following my gaze. Go on. Ask me what's under there. I stayed silent. His grin widened. Your son. The air died in my lungs. You're lying. Am I? Mercer's eyes flashed with something cruel and triumphant. Karen didn't take Jacob to that storage unit. She dropped him off here. Karen sobbed harder, shaking her head. Mercer snarled, "Tell him the truth." She flinched violently. I didn't know. He told me to drop the boy off at night. I thought it was part of the plan. I didn't know he'd. Her voice broke. He said he'd make me rich. Mercer cut her off with a swift kick to her ribs. She cried out in agony. My heart raced so hard I felt it in my throat. "You told me Jacob was safe," I said, voice ice cold. Mercer shrugged. Safe is a relative term. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. "If you hurt him, you'll what?" He snapped. "Put me back in prison? Kill me?" He clicked his tongue. "That's exactly why I brought him here. Why I brought you here. You destroyed my life, my empire, my freedom." He stepped onto the trapdoor, thumping it with the heel of his boot. "And now you're going to watch me destroy yours." He aimed the gun at the latch. One shot. That's all it takes. The drop is 20 feet. Concrete bottom. The kid won't survive the fall. I moved, lunging, fast as I could. But Mercer anticipated it. He swung the gun toward me with lightning reflexes, firing a warning shot that shattered the wood an inch from my shoulder. Splinters exploded across my shirt. "Don't," he hissed. "Not unless you want to scrape your son off the floor." My breath tore from my chest. Outside, I heard faint footsteps, officers positioning, unaware of a trap. "You want revenge?" I said, forcing my voice steady. "Take it on me, not him." Mercer tilted his head. "Oh, I will, but not the way you think." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. One button already highlighted. One touch away from what? Detonating something? Unlocking something? Dropping the door? He raised the phone. "Say goodbye." And then Karen screamed, and oh. She lunged, not toward me, not toward the door, but directly at Mercer's arm, out of pure instinct, pure terror, or maybe the last flicker of humanity in her. Her momentum slammed his wrist upward. The gun fired straight into the ceiling. Dust rained down like ash. Mercer roared in rage, shoving her so hard she hit the wall and collapsed. The phone clattered across the floor, sliding toward my feet. Instantly, I dove for it. But Mercer dove too. We crashed into each other, rolling across the boards, fists flying. His knee struck my ribs. My elbow cracked against his jaw. He was stronger than before, desperation giving him animal power. But I was faster. And this time, I wasn't fighting for justice. I was fighting for my son. I grabbed his wrist, twisting until the gun slipped from his fingers. He headbutted me, stars bursting in my vision. I slammed him back with pure adrenaline. The phone lay inches away. He lunged first. I followed. He grabbed the device, but before he could press the button, I pinned his hand to the ground with my full weight. His scream split the air. "It's over." I roared. "Tell me where he is." Mercer spat blood in my face. "You're too late." And then he laughed. A sound I will never forget. A sound that made my bones tremble. But behind us, a voice whispered, "Dad?" Time stopped. Completely. I turned slowly, terrified I had imagined it. But there he was, Jacob, standing in the doorway, shaking, scared, bruised, but alive. Alive. His small frame trembling as an officer held him close. My knees nearly buckled with relief, so powerful it almost hurt. Mercer's laughter died instantly. His eyes went wide. He hadn't expected this. He'd lost control of the narrative, lost control of everything. Karen sobbed uncontrollably, staring at Jacob like she was seeing a ghost. And I looked at Mercer with a fury so deep it felt like molten fire in my veins. "Game over," I said. He tried to reach for the gun. He never made it. Officers stormed the shack, tackling him so hard the floor shook. Cuffs snapped around his wrists. And finally, after everything, Mercer was finished. But the night wasn't. Not yet. One final reckoning still waited. Karen. And justice, real justice, was about to begin. The moment officers dragged Mercer out of the shack kicking and spitting, it felt like the entire quarry exhaled. The tension that had been wound so tight it strangled the air finally loosened, just enough for my knees to nearly give out. But the second Jacob ran into my arms, sobbing into my chest, every piece of me snapped back to life with a father's instinctive strength. I wrapped him in both arms, pressing my cheek against his hair, feeling the faint tremble in his breath. "I've got you, buddy," I whispered, my voice cracking despite myself. "You're safe. I'm here. I will never let anyone touch you again." The officers cleared the shack, securing the phone, the gun, the trapdoor, and everything Mercer had tried to use against us. But Karen, she was still curled up in the corner, shaking violently, mascara streaking down her face like melted paint. She wasn't screaming anymore. She wasn't running. She wasn't lying. She just stared at Jacob with a hollow emptiness that didn't look like guilt. It looked like the shock of someone who finally realized the world she built was burning right in front of her. 2 officers approached her. "Karen Milton, you are under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy, child endangerment, extortion, aiding, and abetting a violent felon." Her hands shot up trembling. I didn't know he was going to save it for court," the officer snapped, pulling her to her feet. But Karen didn't look at the officers. She didn't look at the cuffs. She looked at me. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, tears spilling. "He said he would help me. He said we would be rich. I didn't think your boy would actually get hurt." My jaw tightened. "You took him from his home. You tied him up. You let a criminal use him as bait. You don't get to pretend you're the victim." She sobbed harder, sagging in the officer's grip. She looked smaller now, pathetic, broken, stripped of all that fake power she used to lord over everyone. But pity was a luxury I didn't have. Not tonight. Not ever. As the officers led her outside, she glanced back at me one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but apologies don't erase trauma. They don't repair terror. And they sure as hell don't bring back the lost hours of a parent thinking their child might never come home." We rode back to the hospital in separate vehicles, Jacob in my lap, wrapped in a blanket the paramedics gave him. He clung to me like he was afraid I might disappear if he blinked. Every time a car passed or a light flickered, he flinched. The trauma had sunk deep, too deep. I kissed the top of his head. "You're safe now. Nobody will ever hurt you again. I promise." Back at the hospital, doctors checked him again, confirming he was physically stable but emotionally shaken. A child therapist was brought in, gentle voice, warm smile, soft tone, to help guide him through the shock of what happened. I stayed beside him through every second, my hand never leaving his. As Jacob rested, 2 detectives walked into the room to take my full statement. This time, the tone was completely different. No hesitation, no doubt, no suspicion. The evidence was undeniable. "We've been reviewing everything," Detective Ross said. "Mercer will face federal charges. Kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy, assault, possession of illegal explosives. He's going away for life." I nodded. "Good. And Karen?" Ross sighed. "She's trying to claim she was manipulated. But between the footage, the SUV, the bomb materials, and witness accounts, she's not going anywhere either. She deserves every year she gets," I said coldly. Ross hesitated. "You did good tonight. You kept calm. You saved your son's life." I forced a tired smile. I did what any father would do. But inside, I knew that wasn't true. Most fathers don't have tactical training. Most fathers don't know how to disarm bombs. Most fathers don't recognize the signature patterns of criminals planning a setup. No, tonight wasn't luck. It was experience. Hard, painful experience I had hoped never to use again. When the detectives left, I returned to Jacob's bedside. He stirred slightly, eyes fluttering open. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy. I'm right here." He swallowed, tears clinging to his lashes. "Did I do something wrong? Is that why she took me?" My heart broke clean in half. "No, Jacob. You did nothing wrong. She's the one who was wrong. Not you. Never you." He nodded softly, curling closer into my side. A few minutes later, Mrs. Ramirez and Sarah rushed in, tears streaming down their faces as they hugged me and apologized for ever being silent about Karen. Other neighbors sent messages, flowers, offers to help, and promises to testify in court. The community that Karen ruled with fear was finally waking up, finally united, and as dawn broke outside the hospital window, painting the sky with soft swirls of orange and blue, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of a nightmare. It was the beginning of healing, the beginning of reclaiming peace, the beginning of rebuilding trust, safety, and normalcy for my son. Later that morning, an FBI agent arrived, one of my old colleagues. She handed me Mercer's file, now thick with fresh charges. "You stopped something bigger tonight," she said quietly. "Mercer was planning more. You saved more than your son." I exhaled deeply. I only cared about saving him. She nodded. "And that's exactly why you were able to." As the morning sun warmed the room, Jacob finally drifted into peaceful sleep. I held his hand, watching his chest rise and fall, steady, safe, alive, and I knew one thing with absolute clarity: Karen and Mercer tried to break us. They tried to tear apart the life I built, but they failed because they underestimated something stronger than fear, stronger than vengeance, stronger than their entire twisted plan: a father's love. And now, justice would take care of the rest. If this story gripped your heart, made you feel the fear, the anger, and the powerful relief when justice was finally served, then don't leave without joining our community. Tell me which city you're watching from in the comments, and let me know what moment shocked you the most. And before you go, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another emotional, suspenseful story like this one. Your support keeps these real, powerful stories alive.